Alright, I decided to run 50 times tier 17 imbued harvest maps and 50 times tier 16s for a comparison. And for anyone that doesn't know what imbued harvest is, it's the craft given by the Horned Scarab of Awakening, and pretty much the main thing is it gives a 50% chance for unchosen crops to not wilt, which goes well with crop rotation. And I wanted to see how good Harvest lies in the current quote unquote poverty league, which is why I'm running this. A lot of people believe that most strats slash scarabs are priced around tier 17s, which is pricing them out of running tier 16s, which is definitely true for some scarabs. So I plan on testing out the majority of strats just to see how good they are in both tier 16s and 17s. I'm starting with Harvest because juice is extremely good money this league. At times, yellow juice is selling for like 40 for one chaos. I saw it selling at 35 at one point, but just extremely good money this league. And because the new chisel potentially buffed Harvest, I'll get into that in a bit. Alright, so how do we actually roll our tier 17s? You apply your rejects, remove the mods that you cannot run, and then try and aim for 50% or higher pack size. That's what I did when I was using the proliferation chisels, which would give it an extra 20% pack size, so every single map I was running had 70% and above. However, since I ran this strat, these chisels have doubled in price. They were 10 chaos when I bought them, they're now around 20 chaos. So I would recommend running just regular chisels and rolling your maps a bit harder for 60 or 65 pack size and higher. The scarabs we use, Monstrous Lineage, Harvest Scarab buff doubling, and Horn Scarab buff awakening. These are the ones that actually affect Harvest. The other two that I used, I just did this to get some more voids. I didn't want to juice up the tier 17 map too much because I did want to see how profitable Harvest was sort of on its own. Obviously, if I added like strong boxes, I could have been like, hey, 2 divs per map, whatever. And most of it came from outside of Harvest, so I kind of wanted to minimize how much loot the map was granting me. And then I added this because sometimes I'd brick a map and I'd get really annoyed at myself, so I didn't want that to happen. But if you want to juice your Harvest as much as you can, you would use the cartography scarab of risk. It adds 2 additional modifiers to your map, but you will need a very good build that does not get bricked by mods if you use this, like Hex Blast. I did not use this because um, so many mods brick my build, early reflect, any of the mana regen or life recovery rate, whatever, and just general there's a bunch of tier 17 mods that I do not enjoy running, but this will add extra context for pack size to your map, which will buff the harvest. So if you want to fully juice, add that, but I didn't add that. And one thing, real quickly, make sure your 5 scarabs are in this top slot. I always did that just by complete accident because I thought it looked cool. But this bottom slot does not actually apply the scarab, at least it doesn't right now. Yep, you can see that MG Craft isn't there. I saw a video about it. So if you're, for example, running the Harvest Scarab of doubling down here, apparently, I've not tested it, but apparently it will consume the scarab and you will not get the benefit from the scarab, so you're completely wasting this and, you know, ruining a part of your strategy. So make sure the map is always in this bottom slot, or you're just nerfing your currency making. Okay, and just to quickly go over the results, it was 14,000 chaos investment for the tier 17s. Obviously, a bulk of that came from the Fortress and the Horn Scarab of Awakenings. I will say, if you want to buy Horn Scarab of Awakenings, it'll probably say that they're selling for around 120 chaos. It's been like that for a week. Just put in a buy order for 100, 105 chaos, and it will sell after not too long. I've not bought a single one of these for more than 105, even if it said it was, 120, 130. Harvest Scarab doubling, same thing. If it says 15, put in a buy order for 12, it will sell. Scarab Monstrous Lineage, they fluctuate between like 4 and 7. I bought mine for 5. It changes throughout the day. The market is obviously pretty messed up this league. Again, these 2 scarabs are pretty much flex spots because I didn't want to juice up the tier 17 loot because it would mess up the comparison with tier 16 if I was like making it a hybrid strategy. Chaos rerolling for me wasn't too hard. It was around 5 chaos per map. Reason being, I really only had 3 mods that would completely brick me, and because I was using this Scarab of Stability, my rejects could be a bit more flexible. But if you have a stricter rejects, a build that can run less mods than I can, then obviously this will be higher for you. And with the chisel proliferation, it's doubled in price. So again, I would recommend just using regular chisels and re-rolling your tier 17s a bit higher to like 60% plus. You can probably still get away with 50% plus. I really don't think this chisel adds much to this strategy at all. The difference in life force between tier 17 and tier 16, there is a difference, but it's not major, and I feel like I mainly attribute that difference to the fact that it is ran on tier 17, and tier 17 just naturally has a larger pack size and quant than the tier 16. You can see right here I made around 600,000 life force, so it's around 12,000 life force per map. Oftentimes you will get zero life force in a map, so don't go into a map expecting 12,000 life force at a minimum. This is averaging out to the 50 maps that I ran. Some maps I got 20, 30,000 life force, some maps I got none, 2, 5,000 life force, but it averaged to around 12,000. You can see here the split, it's around 2/3 yellow, which is much, much better than the split I had last league, so make sure you are following the exact reduced amounts that I take on the tree if you want this exact split that I had too. It's around 12,300 chaos in life force at a 45 to 1, 60 to 1, 60 to 1 split, and just to prove that it's selling for that, I put in a quick sell order deal here. 45 for yellow, 60, 60. I will say something that's annoying when it comes to selling on the trade market in game is the trades will often complete early if it finds you a better ratio. This happens with all trades depending on the price that you set, but doubly so for life force because the ratios are just weird, so it often cancels early, so you can't leave all your life force for sale and then forget about it and come back in the morning. Oftentimes you do have to micromanage selling your life force on the trade market, which is extremely annoying. But 12,300 chaos made from life force alone, which almost made up for our entirety investment in tier 17, and then it was around 9,000 chaos from everything else. That's including scarabs. A lot of scarabs do drop from the harvest itself. Just a lot of quant and pack size makes them drop a good amount of stuff. We also got 4 Avian Pursuit Divination cards, which is a lot more than I was expecting. Like 1. I got 70 Void Divination cards because I did add that Divination Scarab of Plenty. Even without that, you're going to be dropping a lot of Voids, but I dropped around 70. Uber Fragments, I got around 72 and 50 maps. It added to around 2,400 Chaos. I got 4 of the ones that are worth more than a Divine, so I didn't get too lucky on it, but that's how much I made. I got 2 Sacred Blossoms and I got 1 Voidborn Reliquary Key. I'm not counting my maps because I'm not going to sell them. I didn't run 8 mod Corrupted Scarab, and selling non 8 modded maps is just pain. Maybe if the maps were sold in the currency trade market I would count it in the future if that's a thing, 100%, because it would sell easy, but I'm not really going to sell it, so I'm not counting it. All of this, every single item listed here does sell on the currency trade market except from Uber Fragments, which still sell extremely easily. I have no clue why this isn't on the currency trade market. It's actually really, it's the biggest pet peeve of mine from this league. It actually annoys me. But I'm rambling. Everything will sell here extremely easily, so this is pretty much pure liquid. You can see here 21,219 chaos made overall, minus the investment is 7,500 chaos profit, which is pretty much a divine profit every single map, 48 divine profit, almost a divine profit every single map. Okay, and the tier 16, to sum up real quickly, half the investment and we made 2,000 less chaos from the life force alone, which is really a negligible difference when you consider how much more effort we put into rolling the tier 17s. Additional chisels of proliferation, we chaos rerolled, we did the extra quant and pack size from tier 17, and we only got 2,000 chaos worth of Life Force more. Obviously, all of this other stuff greatly makes up for everything because it's only 1,600 chaos worth of loot from tier 16 compared to 9,000 from tier 17. But if you want to focus on harvest alone and how profitable harvest is when you just take the free harvest scarabs, maybe if you add their discs it would be better. It would be better, but when you just take the main harvest scarabs and you just run harvest, it really does not matter whether you do it on tier 16 or tier 17. So if you cannot run tier 17, do not be afraid to invest into harvest. You will still be making money on tier 16, you just won't be making as much because of all the additional stuff that tier 17 grants. But tier 16, we did make 36.5 divines profit in those 50 maps, which is still extremely good. Okay, onto the tree. Real quickly, I'll say I'll look over this tree right before posting this video and make sure it is optimized, and that optimized version will be in the description below. We take shrines because shrine is just the best atlas points you can apply these days. The amount of mobs and player power it grants, it's just a mandatory for pretty much every single strat, just like how Nico was last league. I'd say the same for Ritual, but Ritual is too off the beaten path here, so we don't take that, even though it does give an insane amount of loot these days. We also block these free nodes because you are dropping a lot of scarabs, and you do want to guarantee that those scarabs are the expensive version. All of these scarabs are pretty much cheap. Ultimatum 1 has one good scarab, but that's too rare to actually count on. We increase the chance for ambush, harbinger, and cartography scarabs. All of these scarabs are expensive. The cheapest cartography is like 3 chaos, harbinger scarabs are like 7 chaos, and ambush is like 12. We take all the map modifier effect nodes, absolutely all of them, and all of the quant, because again, that scales your harvest life force. We take the scarab nodes because tier 17s drop a lot of scarabs, and again, we want to guarantee the good ones. We do not take 100% harvest chance because the imbued craft does guarantee harvest, so you don't need the 100%. So you just grab the mandatory nodes that actually buff your harvest, and we take all of those. We get the Eater of Worlds altar instead of the red one. Reason being because it has the higher chance for quant. You get double the quant in comparison to red. And real quickly, I do want to go over this. We reduced the pinks and the yellow. Reason being, you don't want too many yellows, or you won't be able to buff up your yellows from crop rotation. For example, if you were to reduce the blue and the purple, then a lot of the times 70% off the crops you'd be getting are yellow, and you're not going to make any yellow juice back from that because you do need at least 3 or 4. Usually the sweet spot is 4. You want 4 blue or pink plants to then buff your yellows, and then you'll be getting a lot of juice. Last league I did reduce every single yellow node. I took all 3 of these and then the crop rotation, and my ratio from yellow to overall juice that I made, it was like 40% of all the juice I made was yellow, then 40% was blue, and like 20% was pink. That's a pretty terrible ratio. Big mistake on my part. I took this instead, reducing all the pink and then this big yellow node here, and my ratio was around like 70% yellow this time and then 30% pink and blue. So it's a massive difference there, and that's why we take that. Okay, before I end the video, I do want to talk about one thing. This video isn't going to go super in depth on how to run crop rotation. It's mainly about the loot. Maybe I'll make a video on that in the future if people want it. But if you have a plot and that plot has 10 tier 3 mobs, right, the blue ones, and you go and you kill another plot of a different color, that'll upgrade your plot with 10 tier 3 mobs to 1 tier 4 and like 2 tier 3s. And in that case, you're making 3 to 4 less life force, 3 to 4 times less life force than if you were to have just originally cleared your 10 tier 3, mobs. So the sweet spot when it comes to crop rotation, you want around 8 to 12 blue mobs. You do not want to reroll into a boss if you can. You're going to lose a lot of money if you do that. You're going to end up shooting yourself in your foot. Obviously, sometimes you can't avoid it, but you do lose a significant amount of money if you over crop rotate, which is, a bit backwards, but it is how that works. Anyway, that's the video, and to sum it up, almost a divine profit per map for tier 17, and still very good profit over 100 chaos per map for tier 16, which means scarabs for harvest are not gated behind tier 17 prices, which is pretty nice. If this video helped in whatever way, maybe consider subscribing. It's up to you. You don't have to.